I'm Abra, and I'm here to talk to you about different beddings when housing pet rats. Um, First of all, there are two words that I'm going to be using in this video, litter and bedding. Litter I kind of use as an all-around word that means both litter and bedding, but um, occasionally I will be using it specifically to talk about what goes in the litter box. So I'm going to try and just say litter for what's in the litter box and bedding for what's on the bottom of the cage, but I might mess up and say litter a couple times in different places. But most of this information is going to be applicable for either of those things. Say hi, Olivia. So, now the first thing that you're gonna want to know is what litters to avoid, since I can't cover all of them in this video. First, you're going to want to avoid anything that is going to aggravate their respiratory systems, since, as most of you know, rats have very delicate respiratory systems, and you want to try and avoid aggravating them as much as possible. Things that are going to aggravate the respiratory systems are dusty beddings and litters that mold, or are unabsorbent, or bad with odor control. You also are going to want to avoid anything that catches their nails, because that can be dangerous. Or if you're using fabric, a fabric that will fray easily. You're also going to want to avoid clumping or clay cat litters. They're very dangerous. Do not even have a cat litter box that your rats can get to. I have to take my cat litter box out of my room and put it in the back every morning before I let my rats out, because my cats sleep in my room at night. So they need one in here, but when I let my rats out, I don't want them to get into it because it can be dangerous. You're really kids. So, don't let that happen. Some bad litters and beddings in particular are cedar and pine. Cedar and pine also will be called softwood beddings by manufacturers in order to trick pet owners into buying them, that know that you cannot use cedar and pine, but don't understand that cedar and pine are both softwood. And they're the only softwood beddings as far as I can tell. So when something is marketed as a softwood bedding, it means it is usually a mix of cedar and pine. Cedar and pine are bad because, while they smell good to us, the phenols that are making them smell good are coming in contact with the rats, and these can cause secondary respiratory infections and flare-ups of mycoplasmosis. Prolonged exposure is also proven to cause liver failure in your small animals. So, really, any small animal, you should not be using cedar or pine. Many people are attracted to it in the stores because it is the cheapest option, but please don't fall for the softwood thing, or because it's cheaper than everything else. The only wood beddings that I advise using are aspen and hemp. I don't really know if it's considered a wood, but it is a bedding you can buy. Some people will say you can use pine, cedar or pine bedding that has been kiln dried, because that gets rid of the phenols, and I've heard varying things on that. So it's really up to you, but I would say try and avoid it, because there's no really... Just be on the safe side, is what I'm saying. Now, some dusty litters I've heard of are Carefresh brand, some aspens. Aspen beddings can also be dusty, so it depends on the brand. Different brands have different qualities. Carefresh Ultra has been used successfully by some people, but many people report the regular Carefresh to be too dusty. It's also bad with odor control, I've heard. So, and once again, clay or clumping cat litters / Both kinds of cat litters. Any cat litters except what Sweet Scoop I've heard is okay, which is walnut shell based. Um, Recycled newspaper litters are okay. When in doubt, and it's a cat litter, Google it, because you can usually find an answer. Now some good beddings or litters. First of all, some people like to use fabrics, which sounds weird, but they're a very good alternative. Now, I personally don't use fabric beddings in my cage. One, my rats are giant chewers. When I used fleece and towels, they chewed through them and I had to spend at least an hour once a week repairing. It got to be a giant pain in the butt. It was getting expensive to replace the liners that I was making, so I switched over to Aspen. And now I scatter feed, which will be covered in a different video, but a brief explanation of scatter feeding is you take their food and you throw it in their bedding and then they have to go foraging for it, which is a natural behavior that, stimulates how they would live in the wild, and it's very physically and mentally enriching for them. And I can't do that on fleece. So, the fabrics people use most for liners are fleece and towels. Now, they use fleece because when it's chewed, it doesn't have loose threads like other fabrics. But in order to make fleece work, you need to wash it a few times without fabric softener. So it will pull the urine through when it gets peed on, which is why you need an absorbent layer underneath the fleece. This can be anything from newspapers you changed out every couple of days, to cotton batting sewn between two pieces of fleece to absorb urine, to towels. But if you don't put anything absorbent under it, it's not good for odor control or absorbency. It'll just wick the urine away, and then the urine will sit in a puddle underneath it and smell, and it's gross. But fleece is very easy to litter train rats on. So, even if you plan to use a substrate like Aspen later, it can be good to put your rats on fleece for the first few weeks you have them, and to get them litter box trained, because they're more easily litter box trained on fleece. However, my rats are litter box trained and they're on Aspen. The important thing you need to remember about litter box training is it's more effective when you use something different in the litter box than you do in the rest of the cage. Fleece is also very easy to spot clean. Now, I mentioned towels. Towels should usually be put under fleece because they have little loops that can catch claws, and unlike fleece, when they get chewed, they leave loose threads. These loose threads can be very dangerous, and in some cases, rats have gotten caught in the threads and choked themselves, or severed their limbs. Now, that's all secondhand information, so you might want to take it with a grain of salt, but it's still better to be safe than sorry, because those myths came from somewhere. But it's a very absorbent, odor-controlling option. Just make sure you want to put it under fleece. And if your rats are giant chewers, you might want to avoid them altogether and use cotton batting, or just switch to something that's not fabric, because it's less of a pain in the butt, believe me. Now, like I said, I use Aspen. Some people will tell you not to use Aspen. It's a wood bedding. Well, cedar and pine are the two beddings, as far as wood shavings go, that you need to avoid, because like I said, they have the phenols, because they're softwoods. Aspen is a hardwood. It does not have the phenols, and it is safe to use, as long as you get a kind that is not dusty. It's very good for digging and odor control. The only problem I have with it is that it sticks to things. If you have carpet around the cage and you're using it as a general bedding, and they kick it out, it will stick to the carpet and be very hard to vacuum up. I've moved, now I'm on a hardwood floor, so I don't have that problem anymore. But some people also use Aspen in litter boxes with fleece as a bedding. And Um, then when they track the aspen all over the fleece, it will stick to the fleece and be really hard to pull out, maybe get caught in your washing machine. It's also very light, so if you use it in a Tupperware container as a litter box, the rat stands on the edge of the Tupperware container, and the Tupperware container flips, and all their poop and all the aspen goes everywhere. It is good with odor control, though, so it's definitely something you can use in a litter box. Just be aware it's going to stick, and you might want to use a heavier litter box if that's your litter of choice. One bedding that I would love to try, but I'm not able to, as it's only available in the United Kingdom, is corrugated cardboard, which sounds weird, but what it is little squares of cardboard that's had the dust extracted. And it's very soft and springy and absorbent, and it's fun to dig in. I've heard it's great with odor control. It doesn't stick to things like the aspen would, and it's very cheap. It comes in large bales. The brand that I've heard most often talked about is Finicard. So if you're in the UK, you might want to look into Finicard, because I've heard great stories about it, and I have tried looking into getting it shipped to the United States, and I cannot find anything equal to it in the United States. And I can't find anyone that would ship to me in the United States. So, bummed about that, but if you're in the UK, you're lucky. Go try it. Another thing people use mostly as a litter, but sometimes as a bedding, is recycled newspaper litters. Now, these are usually cat litters, but there are also some that are marketed towards small animals. Some of the most popular cat litter brands are Exquisite Cat and Yesterday's News. Exquisite Cat is basically just a knockoff of Yesterday's News. It's a little bit cheaper. But Yesterday's News seems to be more readily available. The only problem with it is that if you're using it as a bedding, it's kind of hard because it's little pellets, and it doesn't look like it would be as much fun to dig in or run around on because like I said, it's hard. However, it is absorbent, and it's fairly cheap, and it's not dusty. But it's also hard to spot clean because the poop blends in. But I use it in my litter boxes, and it's a lot more suited to Tupperware litter boxes, which I don't use anymore because I got boys as well as girls, and the boys were too big, and they would poop over the side of the Tupperware containers. And I have little tiny kitten litter boxes, which work a lot better. But if you do use Tupperware, it's heavy, so when the rat stands on the edge, everything's not going to flip over on top of them. Another bedding or litter that I have tried is hemp. It's not dusty, and it's very absorbent and soft, and I assume it would be fun to dig in because it's fairly similar to aspen. The only problem is it's very expensive to use if you're not just using it for litter boxes. But once again, it's very light, and it's going to stick to things. Now, if you have a smaller cage, you might be able to afford it, but since I have a double criternation and a mumble, I cannot afford to use hemp in my cages because it would take me probably 2 bags to fill up each cage, and it's like $14 a bag. The aspen I order, however, is an 8 cubic foot bag off of Amazon, and it's KT brand, and they make really crappy foods, but I like their aspen a lot because it's $25 for the whole bag with free shipping, and it lasts me 2 months. So, it's a good deal on that. And that is... the last litter I'm going to talk about is Carefresh. Now, I already said the regular Carefresh is too dusty, but some people use Carefresh Ultra, and they like it a lot. I started the very first litter I had for like a week before I upgraded my cage because I started doing research was Carefresh Ultra. and it was white, so it was very easy to spot clean, and it was very attractive, and it was soft, and the rats loved digging around in it. But it was terrible with odor control, and it was expensive. And if you're going to use it only as a litter, which I don't recommend, because like I said, it has terrible odor control, it's light. So once again, it's going to tip over light litter boxes, but it won't stick to things like the wood shavings will. So there are a couple choices for you. If you're in doubt about anything, you want to know more, just Google it. You can usually find a lot of information on the different beddings. So I hope that helped a little bit, and now you understand what to avoid at least. And have a nice rest of the day. Happy rat keeping. Thanks for watching.